This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming and joining us for the learning of Teres Hashem. Be'ezras Hashem Yisbach. As always, we begin B'Rishus Demod Asra of Landau with continued appreciation to all of you for coming and making this shir possible. Tonight's shir is being sponsored by A.B. Spry, my wonderful Talmud, all the way back to the days of the Daf Yomi in the Aguda. And throughout these years, he's been a loyal tape and NCD subscriber. He is actually dedicating the shir tonight in Refuah Shalema for my Rebbitzin, Miriam Liba Bas Devara. She should have a Refuah Shalema B'Sech Shecha Yisrael. And also for celebrating and thanking Hashem for the birth of a granddaughter. We also learn Refuah Shalema for Avram Ben Leah. We learn with the tefillah that all those that have been touched by the dread Machla, known as Yana Machla, and other related diseases, should have a Refuah Shalema. All of us and our loved ones should always be healthy. We learn with the tefillah that those that are looking for their shidduch should find their shidduch quickly and easily. Those that are awaiting children should be blessed with zarachaya v'kayama, healthy mommy, healthy baby. We should have parnasa b'revach or b'chavod, and lange gesund zis shalom bayis. We start off wishing everybody a good chodesh, mishenichnas adar, marbim b'simcha. When Adar arrives, we increase joy. Simcha is not just a pleasure. It is actually a mitzvah. The Bahag in the Sefer HaMitzvah says that the Torah says, "V'samachta b'chol ha'tova asher nasan l'cha Hashem alikecha l'veisecha," is a mitzvah. It's one of the Taryag mitzvahs according to the Bahag, to be happy. I've pointed out many times that this teaches us two important things. Number one, that everyone can be happy, which to a lot of people is a big chiddush. People say, no, I got the short end of the stick. I can't be happy. But it's not true, because Hashem doesn't ask us more than we can deliver. And since He gave us a mitzvah to be happy, that means everybody can be happy. That's number one. Number two, it's why there are so many unhappy people. Because since there's a mitzvah to be happy, that means that the Yetzer Hara is misnaged to try to make us unhappy. It's a very important point. In other words, if it wouldn't be a mitzvah, then the Yetzer Hara is not on our case. But once happiness becomes a mitzvah, so then the Yetzer Hara gets people unhappy. There are a lot of people that are unhappy. They're bored, they're worried, they're jealous. There are a lot of reasons why people are unhappy. There are people that are perennially unhappy because they're always fretting that people have more than them. So they pass by their friend's house with the Anderson windows and the fancy cars, and they gnash their teeth and they can't be happy. That's what happened with Haman. Haman said, Kol Zain and a Shavali. All this is worth nothing to me. Right? He saw Haman Yoshev B'Shar Melech, and he didn't stand up for him. That's it. Haman couldn't be happy. I mean, he had K'vod Ashrei V'Roiv Banav. He had so much to be happy for, but because of one thing, the person can't be happy. That's a great sadness in life, that people have so many gifts, but because of one thing, they can't be happy. They see that the person next to them at work has a better office, has more clients, and they just can't be happy. And that's a tragedy. And that's why one of the things that chase a person out of the world is kinna. Kinna, taiva v'kavod, maitzinas adam and aylam. And the first one is kinna. People that are jealous, it's rekavat samas kinna. It mamish gnaws at the bones. It gets, we say, I feel it in my bones. That means it goes right into the core of a person. Jealousy goes right into the core of a person and doesn't let him be happy. So therefore, that's why we have to purge jealousy. It gets in the way of happiness, and happiness is a mitzvah. It's interesting. There's a famous vart that they say over that the reason why bracha starts with the mitzvah of Kriya Shema in the evening, Me'amosai Korin Hashma Ba'arvin, is because it's the first mitzvah that devolves upon a bar mitzvah boy. The first mitzvah that devolves upon a bar mitzvah boy is the Kriya Shema on the night of his bar mitzvah. So that's why Rabbi Yehuda Nasi started with Kriya Shema Shel Arvis. The Chassam Sofer says that that's not an accurate pshat, because the first mitzvah that devolves upon a bar mitzvah boy is to be b'simcha. Says that's the first mitzvah. If du es Hashem b'simcha, the mitzvah v'samachta b'chol hatoy v'Hashem nasan l'cha Hashem alikecha l'veisecha. It's a Torah directive to be happy. Now, simcha is elusive. It's elusive because people try to become happy by physical ways. Eating, drinking, all kinds of physical pursuits to be happy. But the truth of the matter is that happiness is a spiritual element. That's why we don't find sad animals. The happiness emanates from the soul, an unfulfilled soul. And therefore we have to know that it's spiritual things that bring happiness. That's why it says that Torah makes a person happy. Torah Hashem Tamima Meshivas Nafesh. That's why when they asked Moshe, how do you be Mekayim in Ishinichnas Adam Arba Mesimcha? What do you do? You know, what do you do? So Ramosha said, learn more Torah. I heard this from Ramosha. So learn more Torah. Torah is the Mesameach. Now that's why, the reason why we don't realize that is because, remember I said, since it's a mitzvah, the Yetzer Hara opposes it. And therefore the Yetzer Hara will block us from learning Torah. What do you mean Torah is a mitzvah? You sit by the shir, you're watching the clock. It's so hard. You're getting a headache from the learning. You just can't wait to relax. And you're telling me that's simcha? But think about it. What aren't we allowed to do on Tisha B'Av? Learn Torah. Because Pikuda Hashem Yesharim is Samchei Leiv, the great simcha. And by the way, that's why the word simcha is the same letters as chamisha. Chamisha mi yoideh, who knows 5? We say nagada chamisha ani yoideh, chamisha chumshei Torah. Chamisha and simcha are the same letters. Because that's the true simcha. Ein simcha ke simcha satayra. There's no simcha like simcha satayra. We have to know that our neshama, which is the source of happiness and sadness, is a sliver of Hashem. That's our neshama. Chelik elikam imal vayipach ba'apav nishmas ruachayim. So if we want to know how to make the neshama happy, we have to know that, first of all, doing chesed makes the neshama happy, because mahu racham afata racham mahu chanan afata chanan, and Torah makes a person happy. Now there's also a mitzvah to make happy your spouse, the simach hasishtai. Now there, people don't realize what a great use of their money is to buy nice clothing for their wives, to buy nice shoes. People work very hard for their money, and then they say they blow it for 2 feet of taffeta, for 1 foot of velvet. I mean, I work so hard for my money. But they don't realize the nitzchias, the eternity of a simach esishtai, of making a wife happy. So there's no question that when it says Mishenichnas Adam Marbim Mesimcha, a great fulfillment of Marbim Mesimcha is to increase simcha in your spouse. It's an amazing thing. To be able to do that is a tremendous fulfillment of Adam. Now last week, we spoke about Arichas Yomim. They report I want to give you a few other tidbits about longevity before we start this year. There is a report that the mother of Rav Nisanel Quinn from Torah V'das lived till 111. They came to America. The Chavetz Chaim gave them a bracha. They were already older. They had no children. Chavetz Chaim gave them a bracha that they should go be marbitz Torah in America, and they would have arichas yamim. And she lived till 111 years old. You have to understand the value of a bracha of a tzaddik. A real big value. There's a famous story. If you remember, I talked to you often about the Indian to sharpen the knives before Shabbos. So there's a story of a chassid of the Divrei Chaim. It was a 3-day Yom Tov. There was a Rosh Hashanah and a Shabbos. And they used knives that were not serrated. That was the minhag to use non-serrated knives. And they would sharpen them very well. And when Shabbos came after Rosh Hashanah, there was a worry that maybe somebody, because of the busyness of Yom Adin, that somebody might not have sharpened the knives properly for the Tish for Shabbos. But when the Divrei Chaim made the moitzi and cut the bread, it cut like butter. So the Divrei Chaim said, who sharpened the knives? So the chassid that did it was a little bit afraid. Maybe he did something wrong, and he came over with trepidation that he did. And the Divrei Chaim told him, "Zol's gebenched bis 120 for the way he sharpened the knives." And it's Yedua in the Sansa circles that this person passed away on his 121st birthday. He lived till 120 years. And it's a very big thing to get a bracha from an Adam Gadol. My wife, Rebbetzin, she should have a refuah shalema b'sech shachar Yisrael. She goes to a nursing home, and sometimes she has the schus to be with centenarians, with 100-year-olds. So I told her, when you do, you should ask B'meh harachta yomim. So here's a woman sitting in a nursing home, and she's not that Shomer Shabbos. And my wife asks her, my husband always tells me I should ask B'meh harachta yomim. And she said that when I was a little girl, I got a bracha from a big tzaddik. People should go for brachas to great tzaddikim. That's one of the things that is marach yomim. I remember that I once brought Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky a tea at a chasana. And he told me that somebody once gave him a bracha for long life. And he says, it's working for him. He gives me the same bracha. And I treasure that bracha. Bracha from a tzaddik. Bring the children for brachas for tzaddikim. We talk about arichas yamim. Now, last week I didn't mention it, which I mentioned it here in the shiur many times, but I felt bad that I mentioned it. So I want to mention it in passing that, of course, one of the big ways to achieve arichas yamim is to make yourself needed by as many people as possible. The Orchis Chaim La Rav Luniel says, "Horoitza laharach yamim, have a marba ba'achim v'reim." If you want to live long, have many brothers and friends. Now, of course, what does it mean, have many brothers? Treat many people as if they're the eigene bruder, as if it's a brother. I know my wife, again, soll sein gesund, she sends a lot of older women a Mother's Day card on Mother's Day. And she writes, "You're like a mother to me." She says to me, "Maish, what does it hurt?" They open it up, they feel like $1 million. So she's being Mekayim, she's having many mothers. People say, how can you have many mothers? That's the way to have many mothers. You're right, you send to a lot of women a Mother's Day card. And say, you're like a mother to me. I feel so close. I learned so much from you. You're like a mother to me. I remember I said, you're sending her a Mother's Day card. He said, She opens it up. She feels like $1 million. Does it cost me anything? You have a friend, and you say to your friend, you're as close to me as a brother. And that person feels very, very none to you. So that person, let's say you're not such a good person, but that person doesn't deserve to lose you. That's a big protection. That's the meaning of Olam Nidain Beskira Achas. The world is judged with one blick, with one overview, like a panoramic overview. And Hashem says, listen, this person visits somebody in a nursing home, and that person in the nursing home looks forward the whole week for their visit. That person doesn't deserve to lose you. Person makes themselves needed, especially making themselves needed for people that they're indispensable for. And the people that they're indispensable for are for their children and their parents. Because nobody could replace a child, and nobody could replace a parent. So if a person is attentive to their parents and attentive to their children, then the Rebbeinu Shalom says, how could I take them away? How can I take them away? And then I've mentioned this in the past also. It says, V'sircha Hashem b'fri vitnecha. Hashem will give you extra because of your descendants. If a person is careful to be active in the chinuch of their grandchildren and great-grandchildren, so Hashem says, look, you still have an active role. You're giving over the Messiah, which is, that's indispensable, so I'll give you extra years. So I think it's time we start the parsha before I get carried away over here. But Simcha and Arichas Yamim is a very big thing. Well, we know that one of the things that they gave to the Mishkan was Atzei Shittim wood. Now you have to understand there was no pergament, there was no Lowe's or Home Depot in the Midbar. Where did they get Atzei Shittim from? where did they get Atzei Shittim? Now Lamaisa is, if you look at the Shem Amru brings down from different Rishonim that there were Ya'arais in the Midbar, there were forests in the Midbar that had Shittim. It says, Vayeshev Yisrael b'Shittim, that's why it was called Shittim, they had Shittim wood. Vayishlach Yeshua ben Nun min HaShittim. So they take a learn, I think the Chizkuni says this pshat as well, that in the Midbar they had Shittim. But Rashi doesn't learn that way. Rashi tells us from the Tanchuma, Me'ayin lahem b'Midbar. Where did they get Shittim in the Midbar? You know, it's like you're in the desert and you want to get 100 feet of plexiglass. You're getting plexiglass in the desert. You know, where you're getting construction material in the desert. So Rashi says, Me'ayin lahem b'Midbar. They're in the desert. Where are they getting Shittim? Enough Shittim to make the kalim, to make the crush, and where did they get Shittim from? So Rashi gives us an astonishing pshat. So Pirush Rabbi Tanchuma, Yaakov Avinu tzafa beruach HaKodesh, Yaakov Avinu saw with the divine spirit, Sha'asidin Yisrael livnais mishkan b'midbar, that Klal Yisrael is going to build a mishkan in the midbar, Vehevi arozim l'mitzrayim. So he brought arozim. It's interesting. It says arozim. It's shita, but shita, it says there's 10 different types of erez, and one of the types of erez is shita. So he brought arozim from he brought arozim down to Mitzrayim, and v'notan, and he planted them in Mitzrayim. It wouldn't stay for 210 years. It would get rotten. So he planted, obviously Mitzrayim did not have erez. So he brought it from Eretz Yisrael, planted it in Mitzrayim, Lebonov, in order to have it for his children, Litleim Aleim Kishiyatzim Mitzrayim, to take it when he left Mitzrayim. Which, by the way, all of this is very fascinating, because it means that the Mishkan was built with stuff from Eretz Yisrael. Because Yaakov Avinu brought it from Eretz Yisrael, planted it in Mitzrayim, and then they built the Mishkan with it. You know, you have shuls like the shuls that have in the front. They just did it in the Young Israel, Staten Island. They have stone from Eretz Yisrael, And they build it in the front. So here we have a makar for this, right? It's a mikdash mat. That's what happened. Yaakov Avinu brought the shitim from Mitzrayim, planted it in shitim from Eretz Yisrael, planted it in Mitzrayim, and 210 years later they took it out of Mitzrayim to build the Mishkan. It could even be that Erez has in its root the word Raz, a secret, right? Because this was the bringing of the cedar was a secret to people. Why was Yaakov Avinu bringing down? We're not talking about a few arazim. He brought down to plant a plantation. It says, it's interesting because when Paro sent to Yaakov, he said, you shouldn't be concerned al kleichem. Don't be concerned to schlep things down. Just come down. I'll give you mituv Mitzrayim. And here Yaakov comes down carrying wagons of cedar. It's Erez, it's Raz. It was a secret. The people didn't know. Here Yaakov planted it. 210 years later, the Yidden would carry it out together with the matzah on their backs, together with the booty, and then they would use it for the Mishkan. They didn't even know. They didn't even know why they were carrying it out. They didn't know anything about the Mishkan yet, but the Gadol Hador said it was given over 210 years ago. The Gadol Hador said that this is what you should do. So the Parsha Makima says we learn out something very important from here. And that is the foresight, the far-seeing vision of our Gedolei Yisrael. They see a lot further than us. Now it says, they say over from Rav Kreisworth. Rav Kreisworth dashed on the pasuk, Ani chayma v'shodai kimigdolos. Ani chayma, I am a wall zutayra. So Rav Kreisworth says, you see that the protection of Klal Yisrael is only Torah. People say that the protection of Eretz Yisrael is the incredible Air Force, the incredible army. But you should know that the protection of Klal Yisrael is Torah. Ani chayim, zu Torah. That's don't get any other ideas. The protection of Klal Yisrael is Torah. V'shadai, and my breasts are kimigdolos, are like towers, are like watchtowers. So the Gemara says, Shadai Kemidailais, Elu Talmidei Chacham. Now, of course, why is a Talmid Chacham called Shadayim? Because just like the Shadayim give milk and nurture a child, so the Talmidei Chachamim nurture Klal Yisrael with Torah. They're the Shadayim of Klal Yisrael. They nourish the souls. So what's Pshat says of Christ with Shadayim Kimigdalis? A watchtower, the person standing by the watchtower, he sees the enemy coming from afar. He's able to blow the trumpet and give the warning before anybody else sees the danger. Nobody sees anybody coming. He's standing high in the watchtower. He sees over the mountains and he sees hundreds of horses galloping. And he said, run for cover, escape. He says, that's Pshat Shodai Kimigdolos. The Talmidei Chachamim see much farther than us. They see much more into the future. I've seen this. I remember when they started with the gay rights. And those that were around Rav Miller, when they started with the gay rights, Rav Miller was Eish Lahava, send protests. You can't allow this politician. You can't allow this to happen. And people couldn't understand what is it. What is Rav Miller getting so upset about such a perversion? Why is he getting so upset about it has nothing to do with us. But Rav Miller knew that once it would be allowed to seep into the mainstream of America, it would infect us. And now we have gay dining rooms in Hillel houses. Now it's unfortunately a terrible problem. But when it started, people were saying, and they didn't understand, why is Rav Miller carrying on? about Aaron. You remember when Ramila was carrying on about it? Why is he carrying on about it? What does it have to do with us? Why does he even have to say it? Why do people listening to the tapes have to hear about these things? But that's Rishadai Kimigdalos. There are people that berate the Chachamim at the time of the Holocaust. Why didn't they send everybody out? What? Now, I don't know. I'm not such a sage. But how many people lost all of their Yiddishkeit? How many people threw their tefillin off the boats? How many families were lost? Shaddai Kimigdalos. Chachmei Yisrael see so far ahead into the future. They see things. That's why, if you remember the Gemara Megillah says, Menatzvei Seifim Amra. Which letters are the Mem Sofis, the Nun Sofis, the Tzav Sofis, the Fei Sofis, Menatzvei? And which letters are the regular letters? Seifim Amra. The Chachamim were called Seifim. Seifim is a person that sees into the distance, to have far-seeing capabilities. That's why it's called Einei Ha'eda. We have to teach the children that there's such a thing in the world as far-seeing people. The Chachmei Chazal. Now, speaking about Shittim, my son asks me, my son is a Rebbe in Darche, crackerjack Rebbe, if I may say so. He says, Tati, what do you speak about in Teruma? So I say, besides talking about tzedakah, we have to realize that Parshas Teruma is a blueprint on how to make a mikdash ma'at. Both in how to make a mikdash ma'at in our homes, right? We wish a chassan and kala that they should be zoichet to be bayna bayis nem on a mikdash ma'at, a veritable mikdash ma'at. And both we know that nowadays that we don't have a base of mikdash, our shul is a mikdash ma'at. And all of the minutia in Parshas Teruma is a blueprint. Rav Miller writes a lot about this in his Pirush on Chumash. All the minutia of Parshas Teruma and the different kalim are a roadmap, are a blueprint for a mikdash ma'at in our home and a mikdash ma'at in our shuls. So we know that we use the atzei shitim for the kroshim, to construct the mikdash. And we know that v'asuli arayin atzei shitim. So the receptacle to hold the Torah and the luchas ha'edas are also made out of shitim. So this is exciting that the Rishonim say that the word shitim is an abbreviation, a mnemonic. The shin stands for shalom, the tes stands for toiva, the yud stands for Yeshua, and the mem stands for mechila. It's a fascinating thing. The material, the building blocks of a bayis neman, it has to be its framework, because that's what the Shittim was, the framework of a mikdash ma'at. If you want to have a mikdash ma'at, is at the forefront shalom, toiva, Yeshua, and mechila. Now let's take this apart for a moment. Shalom. To have the Shekhinah in the home, that's what makes the home a mikdash ma'at. To have the Shekhinah in the home, there has to be shalom. Machlokes chases away the Shekhinah. Machlokes chases away the Shekhinah. So we had recently in the daf that there was a home that they were fighting Erev Shabbos. Rameya visited that home 3 weeks, and there was a voice that, of course, with Rameya there, they didn't fight, and after 3 weeks there was a chazaka, he made peace, and he heard a voice, Vaida Apke Hagavram Abesa, he chased the Sultan out of the house. When there's fighting in the house, there isn't Shekhinah. Hashem says, I'm not going to be done with his machlokes. That's why machlokes is the same letters as chelek maves, a portion of death. Because where there's machlokes, there's death, there's not Shekhinah. So the first thing in order to have a bayis nem and a mikdash mat, you have to have shalom. That's why when the Mishmar HaYotzei gave a bracha on Shabbos to the Mishmar HaNichnas, the changing of guard of the Kohanim serving, when they wished the new Mishmar a blessing, they said, Misha Shikein Shmai Babayis Hazeh, the one who dwelled his name in this house, the Shekhinah, who Yishkem Beinechem Ava V'achva V'shalom V'reis. You want to operate with the Shekhinah, you have to have Ava V'achva V'shalom V'reis. That's why in the last of the Sheva Brachas, Ramila used to tell a Chassan and Kala, when the rare time he was Masada Kedushin, because he usually didn't leave his Gemara, he would tell the Chassan and Kala under the chuppah, it says, Ish v'isha shalom beineim, Shekhinah shruya beineim. If there's peace between them, the Shekhinah, he says, right now under the chuppah, the Shekhinah is coming down. Right now under the chuppah, the Shekhinah is coming down. So that's why in the last bracha of Sheva Brachas, right? We say kol chasim kol simcha kol chasim kol kala, right? We talk about ava v'achva v'shalom v'reyes, because that's how the Shekhinah thrives. The Shekhinah thrives on shalom. So therefore, the first thing of the framework, shitim, is shalom. That's why there's nothing worth, here's a person, Rabbi Franz says this rule, there's no chumrah worth sacrificing shalom for. You don't have shalom, you're chasing the Shekhinah out of the home. If anything, the mission statement of a Jewish home is shalom. And that's the same thing for a shul. If a shul wants to have Shekhinah, and we want to have Shekhinah in our shuls, because after all, we're going to our shul and we're davening for health, we're davening for parnasa, we're davening for nachas. Now, our davening, of course, is much more effective if there's Shekhinah. Now, there's some shuls that don't have Shekhinah. They don't have Shekhinah. Some shuls don't have air conditioning. And some shuls don't have an art scroll shas. And some shuls don't have computer-tested Sifrei Torah. But there are some shuls that don't have Shekhinah. And that seems to be an oxymoron. How could you have a shul that doesn't have Shekhinah? But if there's fighting in this shul, everybody's always fighting in this shul. They're fighting over the aliyahs, they're fighting over the gabayas, they're fighting over the president, they're fighting over the rav. They're always fighting. If they're fighting in the shul, there's no Shekhinah. It's the first thing, the framework has to be shitim, and the first thing is shin is shalom. After that, the test is toiva. Goodness, what does that mean? What does that mean? It doesn't mean chocolate syrup. What does it mean that the house has to have toiva? So the first thing is, in order to have a Jewish home, there has to be marriage. Today people say, look, I could get on by myself, I see so many couples, they're not getting along, I could be happy by myself, I'll live on the Upper West Side, we eat out, I have a nice flat. Like toiv yoysa adam levado. Matzah isha matzah toiv. In order to have a mikdash, there has to be toiva. Hashari b'lo yisha, shari b'lo toiva. There has to be marriage. That's number one. Number two, there has to be Torah. In order to have a mikdash ma'an, in order to have shchina, afilu echad yoshev oisik b'Torah shchina kenegdai. In order to have shchina, there has to be Torah. Ein toiv el Torah shenema ki lekach toiv nasati lachem Torasi al tazayvu. There has to be toiv. Now there also should be light. People, they save money. On Shabbos, they have Shabbos clock, shuts off all the lights at a certain time. In the night, they have to walk around gingerly. What are they doing? Unless they're so hard up on money. Light. There should be light. When there's light, there's more happiness. Artificial light also. A shul should be well lit. That's also taiva. And of course, there should be tzaddikim. Because imul tzaddik toiv. So that's toiv. That's the test. Then there's Yeshua. Now what does Yeshua mean? Salvation. I think it means that people in the family should help each other out. That's Yeshua. Yeshua means salvation, help, rescue. A husband should help his wife out. A wife should help her husband out. Brothers and sisters should help each other out. Brothers and sisters should help their parents out. Parents should help their children. You know, it used to be, and this was true in a shul too. There used to be shuls. There was a shul of the Nafcha. There was the Smith's shul. Now, why was there a shul just of Smiths? Because the shul was a network. If you were out of work, you went to the shul of the blacksmiths and you got work. It was a shul of Yeshua. In a shul, there should be Yeshua. People, they don't know. So many people are so wrapped up in their own lives. They don't know what's going on with the person next door to them. They don't know that this person's wife is ill. This person's out of work. This person hasn't had a shidduch for their child in months. This person can't pay the tuition. That's no good. We should know what's going on around us, around our neighbors. We should be able to help out. A shul should be a place, and a home should be a place of Yeshua. That's one of the necessary components, frameworks of a mikdash mat. That's the yud of Yeshua. And finally, the mem is mechila. Oh, how important that is. In a home, husbands and wives shouldn't keep a score sheet, a scorecard. Well, you did this to me, and you did that to me, and I remember this. A home is not a place of netira. Netira is grudges. Especially a home, you want to have a framework of a mikdash mat. There has to be mechila, forgiveness, looking away. The Welt says that in the Altaheim, there was a rule. The Welt says, I just want to see, I didn't turn it off. How long ago was this? Wow. I missed a lot. The tape didn't get turned around, so I wanted to just mention the test of Taiva is Torah and being married and light. And the yud of Yeshua means that the children should help out their parents. People in shuls should help each other out. Network, find people jobs, know what's going on with people, who's sick, who's not able to have shidduchim for their children. And finally, we talk about the mem of mechila. And there used to be a word in the Altaheim. They used to say that you shouldn't go to sleep angry at your spouse. So people say, then I never get any sleep. I'd have perpetual insomnia, le'aleinu. But there was a saying in Altaheim, don't go to sleep angry. A mikdash ma'at should have mechila. And that's true in a shul too. It's true in a shul. That in a shul, there are some shuls where children are continue the feud of their parents. And there are families that don't talk to one another for generations. I remember that my parents didn't speak to his parents. I see this. It's frightening. A legacy of feuding. That's not a mikdash ma'at. A mikdash ma'at has to have mechila, whether it's a home, whether it's a shul. And therefore, I've told you this in the past, that there's an industrial phrase called a mission statement. There are companies that define what's their mission statement. So you want to know what the mission statement of a mikdash ma'at is? It's not talking in shul. That's not a mission statement. That's a halacha. That's not a mission statement. You want to know what the mission statement is? Shalom, Tova, Yeshua, and Mechila. That's the mission statement of a Bayis Ne'eman and our shuls, a mikdash ma'at. Now, another one of the materials which were used for one of the coverings, one of the roofings of the Mishkan, was Oyros Tchashim. Now, the Tchashim was a legendary chaya, a legendary animal that was created only for the purpose of the Mishkan. That's what Rashi tells us. Rashi says, Min chaya is a type of beast, v'lo hoyse ela lefisha, and it was only around at that time. Afterwards, it went into extinction. V'harbe gavonim hoyulo, it had many colors. L'tach metargem sasgavna. That's why the Targum translates Tachash as Sasgavna. Sasgavna means it rejoices over its colors. Shesos umispor begavin shala. It rejoices and it boasts of its colors. Now the Sifsei Chachamim says that Rashi knew that the creature went into extinction. Why? Because Rashi says that it must have been a chaya tahira. Why? Because it says, min amuta beficha. We only use as materials for the Mishkan that which you're allowed to eat. Min amuta beficha. Maman tia toiris Hashem beficha, it has to be min amuta beficha. So therefore there had to be a chaya tahira. If it's a chaya tahira, then the question is, how come it's not mentioned in Parsha Shmini as one of the chayas tahiras? It must be, says Rashi, that it went into extinction and it wasn't around later. So the Or HaHar asks an obvious question. Very fascinating question. He says, Hashem made a creature miraculously, specially for the Mishkan. So that means that Hashem created this as the superb, if you're looking for an interior decorator. Hashem was the interior decorator. He created Uriah especially for the Mishkan. Yet the Tachash was an upper layer. It wasn't seen inside the Mishkan. If Hashem made these colors specially for the interior decorating in the Mishkan, shouldn't the Tachash be the lower level so you could see it inside the Mishkan, see Hashem's colors, that Hashem created a creature specifically for this purpose? It's a very interesting question. So says the Or HaHar that since the Tachash was mispoiled, he boasted, he prided himself on his colors. So Hashem says, when it comes to Kol HaMizgah, if anybody is arrogant, Ein ani v'hu yachal adar memechitza. I can't live with such a person. Ki Hashem malach yeis lavesh. So if someone is mizbar, I can't live with a person. Therefore, it couldn't be in the inside of the Mishkan, facing the bottom of the Mishkan, because ain't not nivahu yachal adar. I can't live with such a mechitza. That's why it wasn't facing the bottom of it. Right? Toyavas Hashem kol gevat leiv. It's an abomination of Hashem. And could be, that's why afterwards it went into extinction, because it says, covered is Maitzinas Adam and Olam, so it became extinct. That's the way the Arahar learns. It's interesting, the Maril Diskin says over here, that when Rashi says that Pshat and Sasgavna is Shesos, that it rejoices over its many colors, the Maril Diskin says because it couldn't be a name, because there couldn't be a word in Aramaic for it, because it wasn't around. It went into extinction. So rather, Onkelos created a word that describes what it is, not that it was its name, because there was no name for it. Zoologically, there was no such creature to have an Aramaic name. It's interesting because if it wasn't for the Maril Diskin, I would say that the Gemara says that Onkelos is Messinai. It's a Gemara Megillah. And when the Gemara asks, but wait a second, then what did Onkelos write? So the Gemara says, Shachchem b'chazor v'yistam. They forgot it and he reinstituted it. So if it's Messinai, so from Sinai they gave the name Sasgabna. It's also interesting because if you look, you'll see that in the Tanchuma it says that Shisha Gavnin Yeshla. It has 6 colors. So Sas is also Sheish. Right? So it's Sheish Gavnin. It has 6 colors. And what bothered me about the Arahar's explanation is, would the Rebbeinu Shalom create something especially for the Mishkan that would turn out to be an abomination? It's a little schwer. Rather, I think that the 6 colors represents Echad L'Mala, V'Echad L'Mala, V'Dalad Ruchas. That was the idea of the Magen David. The 6-sided star of Magen David is Echad L'Mala, V'Echad L'Malta, and the Dalad Ruchas. The 6 colors remind that the Rebbeinu Shalom is above, below, and on all 4 sides. And that's what the Tachash was mispar about. And the fact that it was hidden is because it's the Rebbeinu Shalom that can't be seen. The Rebbeinu Shalom was mechusa. It's interesting because if you learn that Tachash is like the Ar-Hahar, that's a Gaiva, could be that's why the letters of Tachash are the same letters as Shakas, destruction, because Gaiva is a big destruction. And speaking about that, I'm going to leap forward. I'm going to leap forward to what it says. V'asu arayin, you should make an aron amasayim v'chetzi arkay, 2.5 amas long, v'ama v'chetzi rachba, an am and a half wide, v'ama v'chetzi kamasay, and an am and a half tall. Why was the aron not whole? Especially since the aron is the Torah is Hashem Tamima. The Torah of Hashem is whole. So if anything, you'll say, make it all full measure. The Torah is Tamima. It's not, the Torah isn't fractioned. So why is everything fractioned? So there are those that say that no matter how much we learn, we have to know we only know a little bit of the Torah. It's an important thing to know. People say, listen, it's Purim, Megillah, that's all old hat. I know all the stories. I know the Malbim. I know all the Bamlayis. I don't learn something else. That's only because a person doesn't understand. Ein cheker l'svanasa. The older we get, the more with our maturity, the more we could see. And the more we learn, it's only a fraction. That's an important lesson. But the Baal HaTurim says something else. I'll quote you the language of the Baal HaTurim. Ki kol midoisav hayu shvurais. All of the dimensions of the Aron were fractions. Amasayim v'chatzi yarka v'chetzi yarka, ama v'chetzi rachbai, v'ama v'chetzi kamasai. All fractions. shekol mi shaloimei Torah tzarich la'ashaber u'la'hashbel atzmai. Person learns Torah, he has to fractionalize himself. You know, it's a very big danger. When you learn Torah, you could be full of pride. That's a big worry. So we say, "V'haser satan milfaneinu me'achareinu." Remove the satan from before us that tells us not to learn Torah, and the satan afterwards who tells us after we learn Torah, you're a big shot, you're much better than other people. Tells us in Masechtas Nadarim, the pasuk says, "Mimidbar matana." If somebody is meisim atzmai b'matana, the Torah is nitnalai. Somebody is meisim atzmai k'midbar. He makes himself like a desert that's free, and he teaches Torah freely to people. So the Torah is given it to him matana. But then the pasuk goes on to say, "Mibama isagai." But if he feels haughty like a bama, like a high place, then he's pushed down all the way down to the valley. He loses everything. To be very, very, very careful when it comes to Torah. See, Torah is not like any other collection of knowledge. If you're a chess player, so you can go many years without playing chess and you pick it up and you're a good player, you know how to play. And you could be the most horrible person and still be a good chess player. They say over that in the big universities, there were great professors that were terribly promiscuous people. They slept with half of their class. But the colleges kept them because they were huge intellects, so they could act like animals and still have great knowledge. Torah isn't that way. Torah doesn't thrive by a person who is arrogant. That's why the Torah was given fractions. Because the Baal Turim says that if you want to have atzlach in Torah, shekol mi shaloi mitzarech tzarech lishbor la'ashbel atzmai. That's why it says, "Huzaru mibnei aniyim," be careful with children of the poor. Shemimenu teitzei Torah. How you call tzama l'chula mayim? Torah is compared to water because it flows from high to low. The Gemara says that the emperor's daughter said to Talmid Chacham that wasn't handsome, "Torah mefura b'chli mechur." Could there be such extreme Torah, such wondrous Torah in such an ugly vessel? So he says, well, you're going to put your father's wine in silver and gold, it's going to spoil. It has to be an earthenware. He says, yeah, but there are Talmidei Chacham that are handsome. Yeah, but if they would be mechur, they would be bigger. It humbles a person. Torah thrives on humility. We find that's why it says Orein Eino Min Amida. One of the great miracles in the Beis Hamikdash is that the interior measurements of the Kodesh Kodashim was 20 by 20. If you went into the Kodesh Kodashim, you were the Kohen Gadol Yom Kippur, you would measure out 10 amas real estate on each side. So if there's 10 amas real estate on each side, so then there's no room for the Aron. So it says, Aron Eino Min Amida. There was no room for the Aron. It existed miraculously. That's a strange, we always say that the Rebbeinu Shalom wants to do things b'derech hateva. What, he didn't have any real estate? He couldn't afford real estate in Eretz Yisrael? Real estate by the Har Bayis was too expensive. He couldn't get real estate for his Aron? So they say over that one of the lessons is Torah is found by people who feel that they don't have any chashivas. It's like they don't exist. That's where Torah thrives. Torah thrives by a person that feels that he's nothing special. He has no real estate. That's where Torah thrives. That's why the Torah was given on Sinai, the humble, low mountain. It was given by Moshe Rabbeinu the Ishana Mai Mikol Adam in the Midbar. The Gemara tells us in Psachim Daf Samach Vav Amud Beis, Kol HaMisyar, anybody who is haughty, Im Chachamu Chachmasai Mistalekes Mimenu, if he's wise, he loses his wisdom. Now this discipline has to be taught in every yeshiva across the fruited plain. All over the globe. Here's a yeshiva bacher, and he learns the Birchas Shmuel, Rabach Ber, he learns the Genat, he learns the Kovetz Shiurim, he learns K'tais, he learns Avnei Miluim, and then he comes to the shul and he sees somebody learning a daf yomi, maybe with Gemara, with the Askral, not even Rashi inside, and he looks and he says, these people don't know nothing, they call this learning. And he looks down with them with his nose. This is not learning, you call this learning? It's a very big danger. All the Granats and all the Birchas Shmuels and all the Avnei Miluim and Ketzais could leave him. Because Kol HaMisyar, it's a Gemara Mesachim. Kol HaMisyar im Chachamu Chachmasei Mistalekes Mimenu. It's not like other disciplines. If you're not a worthy receptacle, the Torah doesn't stay. There's another thing about Torah. It's not like riding a bike. Gemara says, if you don't constantly review it, it doesn't stay. Close your eyes from it, it's gone. That's why we find by Yeshua, we're coming to Zion Adar, when Moshe Rabbeinu was coming to his Petira, he said to Yeshua, Sha'al mimeni kol sveikas sheyeshli. Ask for me any doubts that you have. Now's the time. So Yeshua looked at Moshe Rabbeinu in wonderment. He thought it was a criticism. If he had any questions, he asked at the time that he learned it. It's not that he missed the shir. It says, Yeshua ben Nun lo yomish b'teich ha'oil. He never missed the shir. He never went out to the bathroom. So Yeshua told him, Amaloi Rebbe, klumi nachtach ha'shachas. Did I leave you one moment? V'alachti l'makam ha'achad. Did I ever go to a bris? Did I ever go to a pinyan haben? Did I ever go to a chasana? He says a farish a pasuk, that pasuk is made. Harikasa b'tayrim and shows to Yeshua ben Nun lo yomish b'teich ha'oil. I never budged. Amazing thing. Miyad toshash koiches shamosh. Moshe Rabbeinu felt bad. Yeshua forgot 300 halachas. Now the Pashib Pshat, the way Rashi learns is by saying this, since he made Moshe Rabbeinu feel bad that he wasn't needed, that's why he forgot the learning. But the Mashal learns a different Pshat. The Mashal says, because Yeshua said, I don't need it, I know everything. He lost 300 halachas. You have to be careful. Torah, to thrive, there has to be a posture of humility. Now I have to tell you, it's very hard to teach humility. Very hard. The real way to get it is to see that your children have role models. I grew up around Rav Moshe, who's the humblest of all men. I grew up around men like Rav Chaim Mintz, who for many years didn't even have a beard, who was so humble, and is so humble. We have to know that this is necessary for, you want to make a child a Talmid Chacham, a true Talmid Chacham, there has to be humility. I have to be able to know that I don't know anything. I have to be able to respect others for what they know. I have to know that what I have extra is because Hashem gave it to me. It's not because I'm so special. I have to know that I have to be willing to ask, that I don't know everything. In order to succeed in Torah, there has to be humility. That's why we find that Beis Hillel, the halacha is like him, Shem Noichim Vanovim, because they were easygoing and humble. The Kavayosha writes that the reason why the Tanoim and Amoraim they were Melamodim and Nisan, they were able to do miracles, they had Ruach HaKodesh, they had Gilui Eliyahu, is because they were humble. Same thing is true with the Rambam, with the Shulchan Aruch, with Reb Kiva Eger. These are all amazingly humble people. V'yikuli Truma. So on this pasuk of V'yikuli Truma, the Medrash says, as it says, Ki lekach tov nasati lachem terasi al tazayv. The question is, V'yikuli Truma is to collect tzedakah for the Mishkan. What does it have to do with the pasuk of Ki lekach tov nasati lachem terasi al tazayv, which is about Talmud Torah? So the Mefarshim answer that it's a warning. That although you give a lot of tzedakah, don't forget, don't forget not to forsake my Torah. There are people that think that they could redeem themselves by giving a lot of tzedakah. Parashat Makimas tells a story that a Rav asked a man, how was your Yom Kippur? He says, well, to tell you the truth, Rebbe, I can't go without breakfast. I just can't. So I gave a lot of tzedakah and I had a coffee. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Man, he writes, there was a shul in America 20 years ago, a Sephardi shul, where they had a custom that the night before Yom Kippur, everybody would gather and they would say slichas and do ataras nedarim and kaparas, and they would give incredible amounts of money to tzedakah. And that's how they would go into Yom Kippur. And the Chacham, although it meant a tremendous loss of revenue, was Mavatal the Minig. Said people felt that they took care of the year by giving the tzedakah before Yom Kippur. People rely on Chato Echad but tzedakah proik. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. The Dabna Magid says in Moed Kazach, the Dabna Magid says that the reason why Nadav and Avihu died at the height of the Simcha on the 8th day of the inauguration of the Chanukas Habayis of the Mishkan. I mean, why did the Rabbeinu Shalom mar the celebration? We were inaugurating the Mishkan. Pumped that time such a tragedy to Nadav and Avihu that they should die. I mean, it took the steam out of everything at the height of the ecstasy. And the answer to Dabna Magid says that the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted to teach Klal Yisrael, don't think that now that you have a Mizbeach and Karbanas, you could sin and you'll be able to take care of it all with bringing Karbanas. You'll see at the height of the Akravas HaKarbanas, there could be a Misa of Nadav and Avihu. You can't buy your way with tzedakah. You can't buy your way with Karbanas. But I think there's another reason. We all know the Yikhu Li Truma. It doesn't say V'nosan Li Truma, but the Yikhu Li Truma. Because what we really take for ourselves is the money we give to tzedakah. Everything else we don't take with us. What we really keep for eternity is the money that we give to tzedakah. And I think that's why the Medrash says, you want to take something else for eternity? Much of the pursuits we do in this world, we're not taking with us. It's exciting, it's enjoyable, we're not taking with us. Says the Medrash, V'yikuli Truma, it also says, Ki lekach tov nasati lachem. You want to take something? Lekach tov, you want to take something? Terasi al tazayv. That's eternity. You should know in this world, you tell people, you use your money for that stock, you could have invested in Amazon. And if you would have invested it years ago, you know how much money you would have? So you've used your time to go to the mall. Use your time for the ball game. You know what the take home of learning Torah is? You know the nitzchias from Torah? So what we could do with our money is give to tzedakah. That's the great kicha. People think that that's giving it away. No, that's what we keep forever. Same thing, you want to do the most with your time. Learn Torah, that's the most you can do with your time. It would be the will of Hashem that in the schus of our tzedakah and Torah, in the schus of the Hevel Tinoika Shel Beis Rabban, which is the kruvim that was seichen kafeim lamala in the Kodesh Kodashim, is children learning Torah. That's the great schach. That's the great protection of Klal Yisrael. We should have Shitim, Shalom, Taiva, Yeshua, and Mechila. That merit Hashem should bless us with everything wonderful.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.